All right. Welcome back to the Life and Leverage podcast. Excited to introduce and bring in Patrick Asselone, the owner of Target Trading Academy, here today. And of course, Randman back in action as always. So thank you guys for joining. Thanks a lot for coming in, Pat. Taking the
Thanks
time.
for having me because I have so much time to give you.
We know that's not true. So we appreciate you coming in today, man.
Yeah.
So
how's it been going in the trading room today?
Let's see, with the automated software, Preston's automation of my method, you mean?
Yeah.
I was up like 5 wins and 2 losses on 2 contracts, up about $900 before I shut it off, according to the rules. Preston, of course, is just letting it run because he's just lazy and probably is just, he's got his personal trainer over at the house, so they're working out, I'm sure.
He's not here to defend himself.
That's good. He'll see it later. Is that Pit Viper you're talking about?
No. That's the new stuff that he's working on. The automated signal or trade assist.
Okay.
Nothing's 100% automated. You still have the option of taking the entry or canceling it, but what it's doing is it's identifying the entry, identifying the reward to risk. If it doesn't qualify according to our standards, it won't throw a signal out, things of that nature.
It's going to be a big asset to a lot of the new students that are coming in, if they choose to utilize it. But they still have to learn the method.
Yeah, they still have to learn the method matter what.
And no matter what, you still got to learn that method. And being able to trust it, build faith in these edges that you draw each and every day. But if it's automated, and yet what was it, you saying it earlier, or was it Preston saying it earlier? Automation without human assistance is just automation, and it's not going to work as well.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I was talking about that this morning, and I was actually quoting someone that I absolutely despise and have nothing but contempt for. But he made a great point that machine is one thing, man is another thing. Man and machine, the combination is essentially unbeatable because, for example, you can hear all these crazy things you want about AI coming out, okay? And you hear these things about, well, the AI is going to do this. Well, you know something, if you're some wacko freaking snowflake that's programming it, well, that's probably what the AI is going to do. It's not going to think on its own, but it's only as good as the programmer. So,
absolutely.
Or the method. So what are we doing here? We're taking all of the heavy lifting out of it, qualifying a trade, putting the trades on, putting your trailing stops on, putting your limit. It's going to handle all of this from step one by the actual signal being valid. If it's not valid, it won't take it. Next. And if it does take it, or does throw an order out there, it's then entirely up to you to you to take it. Is it the first time there? First time, best time. Is it the second time there? We're probably not going to take it. So you click it off. But to Randall's point, you absolutely have to know the method. All of the automation in the world is not going to make you a great trader, period.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But to also add to that, like the power of having the bot that can execute faster than you, but then you can also be the brains behind it, then having to, both of them is better than one, right? I mean, it's always going to execute better.
This morning, for example, I had taken 3 separate, and that's Delilah in the background. I had given 3 separate NASDAQ trades. One, literally a minute before the market, it threw an order out because it was a gap fill. So I'm taking that no matter what, hell or high water. It hit our target profit. It came back up. It threw out another signal again. Well, that's officially the first signal of the pit session. I'm taking it again. It's a gap fill. Then the market started moving higher. And it was the ES. And what happened? It was a couple minutes before news. We don't take it. news came out, market went straight up, came back down to the HVA. It lit up a blue bar, which is a reversal bar long. It hit immediately and it was out immediately with a win. You're not going to be able to do that manually. It's not going to happen.
Well, you can't do it. I mean, it's physically impossible to do that, right?
I've never seen anybody that can do it. I've seen every scumbag liar in this business talk all kinds of garbage about what they can do and what they can't do. And then when we say, okay, let's do it, you know.
Yeah. Has anybody taken you up on that bet that you had out there? You know?
No, nobody's ever taken me up on that bet.
Nobody ever will, because they're all.
It's probably been a long time since you've heard about it, because we really haven't talked about it very much. I'm the only guy in this business that's putting levels out the day before for you to take entries. My reputation's on the line every single day. Prove what I'm doing isn't real. Nobody's done it. I started out at 5,000, 10,000, and then it literally got to the point where just name your number. Prove what I'm doing is not real. And nobody's ever taken me up on the offer. So
nobody ever will, I don't think.
Nobody ever.
So that's it. What's the bid up to right now?
It's whatever they want.
Bring it on, people. You heard it. You heard it
what
from
I'm doing isn't real. Prove it. You know, because here's the big takeaway from this. Everybody expects me to do it. Well, just because one person can do it doesn't necessarily mean anybody else can do it. You know, if you guys have ever been if you've ever seen the world of submission grappling, there's a guy named Gordon Ryan who's the best in the world. Well, Gordon Ryan can do several things because Gordon Ryan's 6'3", 250 pounds. He's not throwing flying arm bars. He's doing what he does, right? So when we tell people, look, bring it on, prove what I'm doing isn't real, they talk a lot of garbage, but they can't necessarily do it because they have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah, I've only been doing this stuff for 15 years, and we lose too. But our risk management is what keeps us alive, which is something that a lot of people don't understand. And also, you're going to hear a bunch of buffoons in this business. Oh, you got to do it live, or that's how you got to learn. Stay away from that guy, because he probably owns a brokerage that he's double dipping on.
Yeah, he's going to get participation in the number of contracts that you trade each and every day, right?
Because he's probably your broker.
That brings me to a question I wanted to ask you, Pat. And I want you to explain first how you even got into the business, because I think that's good. But I want to go into how you created your money management structure. What led you to creating that?
That's a good question.
First, I just and because I sort of got off on a tangent there, and I apologize.
No, you're good.
With the everybody expects me to be able to do my method, but can you replicate it? Can you teach other people to do it? All of these wins that we're putting out the next day, featuring the levels that we put out the night before, are all taken by my students. They're not me.
Right.
And we're not calling them out for people. They're doing it on their own because they've learned how to do it. We've taught them how to do it, and they've suffered. And that's the only way you learn how to do this. How did I come up with money management? Well, you would see people making money in the morning and giving it back in the afternoon. And the problem is they didn't know where to stop, because there's this ridiculous fallacy in this business that you're just, the wins will outweigh the losses. That's ridiculous. People don't take emotions into consideration. This is not a business of math, science, and art. Okay. It's a business of human emotion. If you can't control your emotions, you're screwed. So what did I come up with? I came up with money management, that if you're up X amount after your first trade of the day, you can only risk half that amount because you need to leave with something. This is your profession. You've got to get paid. Okay. So let's say you're up $300. The most you can risk on your next trade is 150. If you lose or break even, you're done for the day. Why? Because you're going to get a bunch of people who, I got to get that back. No. You lost it. Accept the fact you took a loss, walk away, being ahead for the day, come back tomorrow. A lot of people can't handle that because they have to win. Their ego is all encompassing. They can't take a loss.
That was one of my biggest problems.
Because God forbid, Randall, nobody's ever lost in their entire life. I mean, everybody got married and is still married to their first girlfriend. Everybody's always won. You get particular Brazilian fighters who are 700-0, though nobody's ever seen them fight. But they're there. They've never lost. You know. So what you're telling me is you never got tapped out in training.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Apparently.
Well, I think this is going to lead us to the next one, because the reason that he's talking about this stuff is because he knows it probably better than most. Why don't you tell us what you used to do before you got into trading there, Patrick?
Well, I was a professional fighter before I even got into the trading business. I had no idea what the trading business was. So May 10, 2003, I won the World Extreme Fighting World Championship, which at that time, the promotion was on its way down. The UFC was in its ascendancy. A lot of the same guys that fought in the WEF, especially in the smaller weight classes where I was at, also fought in the UFC. So it did have some legitimacy. I've fought all over the world many, many times. After winning that title, I retired. A guy that
Smart.
I used to train. Yeah.
He said smart. How old were you then? How old were you when you retired?
34, I think. In which I didn't necessarily retire because I didn't want to fight. I love to fight. I'll fight anybody right now. I really don't care. But it started to become a sport instead of a fight. And politics started being injected into the game, and it was something that I really had no tolerance for. So a guy I was training said, well, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? And I don't know. Probably going to sleep for about 4 months because I have nothing to do now. And he says, well, you're going to come to work for me. And I said, look, I don't even know what you do. And for me to leave everything that I have, you'd have to make me a great offer. So we're eating an IHOP. He scribbles out a number on a napkin. And I said, okay, when do we start?
No shit. Wow.
And that's how that started. So
where was that? Where was that in Chicago, or was that?
No, that was Miami Beach.
New York.
That was Miami.
That was in Miami Beach.
Yeah,
no kidding.
That was Miami Beach.
Okay.
He was a monster player from Solomon Brothers who had a $300 million book of business, who brought his book over to Wachovia. He had like 22 clients and a massive book of business. He brought his book of business over to Wachovia. He brought me in to work for him. I had to take all of every freaking license that he had, practically 766, all kinds of things, because he was looking to turn his book of business from a collateralized debt trading book of business into a trading business, because he knew collateralized debt paper was coming to its end. That was the beginning of that 2008 housing failure
debacle that we went through. Yeah.
I was one of 8 guys in the entirety of Wachovia Securities that was authorized to sell collateralized debt paper, which is an entirely different conversation altogether. But he saw the end coming, and he wanted to turn his book of business into something else. And he thought commodities was the next big thing. And I started learning under him. So that's how that all started.
And what at that time when you got into it and you were studying it and trading, what kind of stuff were you looking at? What were you doing?
Dude, you were doing market profile by hand.
Yeah, drawing it out on graph paper.
It was everything by hand. You know, this was no joke. And then when you would ask him, well, what does this mean? And he'd take a look at it and say, you know something, that's a really good question. Why don't you find the answer out and explain it to me? He never gave me the answer to anything. I had to find every single thing out myself, which is the greatest way to learn, which goes back to the fighting business of, you know, there were these 2 famous fighters one time, and one guy's looking at the other guy saying, you know, what's the best way to take a kick to the head? And behind him, another guy who hates his guts is throwing a kick to his head, unbeknownst to him. The one guy facing him, who he asked the question, pulls him out of the way, having no idea what was just going on behind him. And he said, the best way to take a kick to the head is to get out of the way.
Love that. I love that.
Okay, so maybe you should really be thinking about the question you're asking before you ask for the answer. Okay? And whatever question I had asked Mike was always spit back at me with, you know, hey, I don't know, but that sounds like a great question. When you find out the answer, come and explain it to me in a manner I can understand. So that's
huge. That's huge.
that's amazing.
That
Right.
Is
he had,
that go ahead, Randall.
And what you figure out very quickly is all of this technical analysis garbage is an absolute freaking lie. It's a hack, fraud, con man game of people creating these lagging indicators, meaning it's telling you what's already happened. Well, why do I need something that's told me what's already happened when I can read it in real time? And I can also read real support and resistance provided by a market profile graph that's giving me participation vertically and horizontally at that moment. Why? I don't need it. I'm not selling a gimmick. There's
Meaning,
not,
for those who don't know who you're talking or what you're talking about, you can still see what's already happened, right? You have access to still see the longer term and see what's already happened. It's not
yeah, absolutely.
It's not something you look at. It's there, but what you prefer to look at is tick by tick every single move in the market, where it's coming from and how it moves.
Exactly. And what did I draw yesterday? Well, if it was a great place to sell yesterday, it's going to be a great place to sell today, because those cats that were there yesterday are going to slam you again. Vice versa. If it's a great place to buy yesterday, it's a great place to buy today. You just have to be able to identify it, which is where the vast majority of people fail, because they're using these ridiculous technical analysis indicators that mean absolutely nothing.
like Fibonacci's.
Like Fibonacci's, GANFANs, freaking RSIs, relative strength indicators, really should be called really stupid indicator. None of them, they're all BS. All of them. And you're going to get some cat that tells you, to Randall's point, oh, there's Fibonacci level. Well, there's infinite numbers of Fibonacci levels. So sooner or later, you're going to get within the proximity of one of them, and it might go the other way. Mm-hmm. It's not happening all the time. It very rarely, if ever, happens.
It was very difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult to see who is actually in control. Now, with market profile, as you demonstrated, we can see who is in control. We can see, are we in the previous session's range, or are we actually trending? Because if we're in the previous session's range, really nobody's in control. Yeah, no. In the overall market, somebody's in control. But right now, it's not a time to take a trending trade. And that was one of the things that I had a hard time grasping when I first got involved in this, is grasping the fact that I'm inside of a range. Why in the world would I want to try to take a long or a short if it's not at an HVA edge? And even then, and even then, it's a marginal trade because nobody is in control.
Well, it's marginal at best. And here's the big problem. The vast majority of people who have absolutely no clue what they're doing, and make no mistake about it, that's the vast majority of people in the trading market. They got to get into the open. Why? That's the first 30 minutes of amateur hour. If you don't know what amateur hour is, it's because it's you. Okay? And they're just randomly hitting a button. Okay, well, we used to call them coked out paranoid button pushers, because you get people that are just hitting buttons because they got to be in on something. Sure. They don't even know where they're at. Are you in a defined downtrend? Well, what's the start date you're using? When's the beginning of the contract? When did it roll over? How many days did you use to roll over? I used to ask these to these super duper professional traders. They had no freaking idea what I was even talking about.
They just got lucky a couple times.
Pretty much. Yeah. And they kept spending other people's money.
Yeah. So what part of that led you to develop your strategy, where you were looking at all of the rest of the bullshit? You looked at market profile and you're like, all right, there's something here. Now, how am I going to build something off of this? And because you stick to your method. You're the most disciplined person I know. Number one. And number two, that has to come from you having faith in it. So where was it that you looked at market profile and then developed your method? How did it move into that?
It's also not faith. I know it works. And this goes back to training when I was fighting. Okay. There's 3 or 4 submission holds that really do work. A choke, an arm bar, a leg lock, and that's about it. There's 100 different ways to get into it. Okay. So what do? You practice the end result thousands and thousands and thousands of times ad nauseum. And sooner or later, you're going to fall into one of them. It's just muscle memory. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, like you say with do you have faith in something? There's lots of guys out there who fancy themselves as fighters and tough guys and, I'm going to knock you out. Well, dude, I knock out people all day, every day, 4 hours a day. That's what I used to do. So when I hit you, I'm going to hurt you because I do it every single day. If you don't practice every single freaking day, you're not going to be good at anything. No. Training or not. Mm-hmm. Yep. So what is this? You're looking for specific places to get in, and you do it the same way every single freaking time, every day. We have what? 2 go-to trades, Randall, and a gap fill.
Yep, maybe. Pretty much.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where then you're also dealing with people who are getting into that more is better. No, it's not. Mm-mm. Straight right hand's a straight right hand. Reversal's a reversal. It is what it is.
Either it's qualified or it didn't. Here's the problem that people have. They can't believe that. Either either it is or it isn't. And yet you see students that struggle with figuring out the room to run is the biggest problem that they have. They can't see where that support and resistance is above you or beneath you, depending on which direction you want to run. And so back to what you were talking about earlier, this program, this AI program that you're coming out with that follows suit, and it's identifying this stuff faster than we can as humanly possible. And it immediately identifies it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's based upon my entries and exits, and it's doing it faster than you can do.
Yeah.
So you're taking all the work out of it, but you still have the responsibility. You have to take responsibility for taking the entry, which is the biggest problem in this business. Nobody wants to take responsibility. This is going back to my mentor, the guy that brought me into the business. That everybody wants to swim, nobody wants to get wet. Everybody wants to take credit for the winning trades, but they don't send in the losers. Well, that's the problem with this business. You're only as sick as your secrets. That's why, what do? We make you send everything in. And I already know where the entries are the day before because I'm the guy that came up with them. So you can't sit
and you
there
put it in the time, right?
Excuse me, Mike?
I said, and to go back to how it started, it's because you put in the time, right?
I put in the time and I failed miserably. Yeah. This is what people don't get. When you start to learn how to trade, you're going to fail miserably because this is something that nobody is born to do, and you're learning somebody else's process. And it's not necessarily learning somebody else's process that really bothers people. It's that they're not right. That's what bothers people more than anything. I've had people join this course specifically because they thought they were going to prove me wrong, and they lost. And they're still with me, and they've been with me for years. You have to remove your ego from this and understand you're not going to win every time. But now that I've won, what do? It's not necessarily how much you make, it's what you keep. Because if you can't keep what you made, you've just lost and you're wasting your time. If that makes sense to everyone.
Yeah, and that's exactly why that money management that you developed, that program to follow suit of that, it's brilliant because you quit while you're ahead. Now, can you risk half of what you've earned? Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're up $600-700 or let's say you're trading multiple contracts and you're up thousands of dollars, do you really want to risk half of that?
No.
Is it worth it?
It's not worth it. And what people don't seem to understand is this, and we go back to the fighting analogy. Okay. Let's say you're fighting for the world championship and you hear all these boxing goofballs say the same thing. I'm going to knock this guy out in the second round. Okay, awesome. So let's say you're whooping somebody's ass and the second round ends. Because you didn't knock him out in the second round, you're going to quit? No. Okay, you're going to keep on going until you get something that's valid, right? But what happens? The more you stick your head out there, the greater chance you have of getting knocked out. You want to take your win and leave. And what people don't seem to understand is this: you've got to start from somewhere. Because if you can't do it with one contract, there's no way you can do it with 5 contracts.
That's right.
You've got to check your ego at the door.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do it with 1, you can do it with 2. If you can do it with 2, you can do it with 3, so on and so forth. But there's no way you're going to start with 10. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to lose with 10. It's foolish. It's stupid. Okay?
And
so
there are a lot of stupid people out there.
Of course there is. I get people all the time that they're up $200 today. It's just not enough. Okay, what's enough? It's never going to be enough. So let's throw the fantasy out the window right now. You can do it with 2. You now need to earn your way with 3. If you can do it with 3, you got to earn your way to 4, so on and so forth. Sooner or later, you're going to find that sweet spot where you can't stomach anymore. And please, all of you pro buffoons out there who tell me that doesn't exist, you're lying to yourselves and you're lying to people who you're selling courses to. Because my risk tolerance, I have no problem throwing the dice. It doesn't bother me. I'm going to tell you the vast majority of people cannot go past 4 contracts. They're doing exactly the same thing with 2 that they are with 3. They get to 4, they freaking lose their mind. They start closing entries out. They don't take trades. And it's because the numbers start flipping faster for them. And generally, why? Because there's this deep-seated trauma that they have of that they can make more in one trade than they're used to making in a week working. That's devastating. And in many cases, it's insurmountable.
It's hard for people to grasp that. It really is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is. People think that this is Wall Street, buy, sell, buy, sell. You have no idea what you're even talking about when you bring up ridiculous arguments like that. It's foolish. Because when it's really your money on the line, it's an entirely different story, and the pucker factor is real.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah, that adrenaline starts pumping.
Well, how did you learn how to do it? Fought in front of tens of thousands of people and screaming for my demise. Once you learn to block everything out and focus on what you're doing, you can then grow and you can start building and you can start moving from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. You can accept the fact that the trade you just took lost, but you look at your data and you take it 40, you take it out of 100 times, you win 40%. Your risk management keeps you in, and the other 40 are running, and you're wildly profitable. You're going to take it again. Period, because that's what the data says.
So, how important would you say it is to track your every trade and watch your own data for your trades?
You have to track every single thing that you do, because if you don't, you're not going to have a sample size from which to draw upon. You have to. Most importantly, you can't lie to yourself. You have to send everything in. You've got to track everything.
So 100%. When we get people that, and we do, that say, well, I want to do this and I want to do it now. Why can't I do it now? Back to what
you're doing. But go right ahead. Far be it from me.
Right. I can't tell you not to trade your money, but should you? Probably fucking not.
Well, there's always that question of if you're so freaking scary good, why are you here?
Why are you here?
Yeah.
Because they
take you up on your bet. Come on.
Take me up on the bet. I've heard people, well, I've been trading for 20 years. So you're here, you bought a course from me, which means you've just done it wrong and you suck for 20 years. So until you come to grips with that and you accept the fact that everything you've done up to this point has not worked, you're never going to succeed at what I do, because you're always going to try to impose what you failed at onto something that works, and it's never going to work that way. Again, you've got to take your ego out of it.
You have to develop those good habits right from the get-go and stick to them.
Right. And the only way you develop the good habits is by failing miserably learning from your mistakes and not doing them again. You're going to get a bunch of people on this podcast who say, "Oh, this guy's a jerk. He's arrogant." Let me tell you something. I've been knocked out all over the world. So you can kiss my entire ass. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Because unless you learn through failure, you are not learning. Period.
100%.
No one fell out of a womb knowing this. And if you find somebody that says they did, bring them. I'll put my money up against them right now.
If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's insanity.
Well, without success,
changing.
insanity.
Right.
That's what it is. And it takes a lot for people to admit that the courses they've paid for, they were freaking lied to. People don't like admitting when they're wrong.
True.
That's why you have revenge traders out there as well. They don't like to say, okay, I read that wrong. I'll accept that. I won't do that again. Let's move on. But they won't do that. They can't give it up.
This is an important thing. I'm glad he brought it up. I mean, Pat, you are ridiculously disciplined, and you still came up and you set this all up, and you taught it to all of us. So, how was there a time in your life that you did get into a flow of that, where you were revenge trading yourself, and then you somehow beat it out of your own head that, like, this is stupid. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Oh yeah, when I lost $72,000, and the guy that brought me into the business just laughed about it. Said, "Don't do it again."
And you didn't.
And I did.
How long did that 72,000 last? Was that in one day?
It was one trading session. That was 3-4 hours.
Couple hours. And then, so after that, which obviously that's a lot. Don't get me wrong. That's a big loss. But I mean, did
Mike,
you change?
Let's be very clear here. You hear people talking about how much money they have. Let me tell you something. Most people can't come up with $10,000 in cash right now. Okay?
Yeah.
You're talking about 72 G's.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot.
Agreed. I'm saying, was it that one time that you were just like, after that, this is done. This is done.
Done. Learn my lesson.
Got ya. And that's kind of how you started developing the money management techniques that you use to this day?
Absolutely, because you've got to look at things in stages, and you got to say, okay, I just won one. And you're going to get all kinds of mathematicians who say my math is wrong and genius. That's great, man. Okay? Every time you get into a trade, you have a 33% chance of winning, losing, and breaking even. If you win, your chances now just go down dramatically. And it's not necessarily because of the mathematical formulation. It's because of the human emotion that gets involved in it. Because you have this irrational exuberance that now you're unbeatable. You can do anything. So I'm going again, because if I just made 300, why can't I make 8,000 my next trade? I've seen everything, and I've seen everybody. I've seen the foolishness they convince themselves of. It's the irrational exuberance. It's the human behavior that generally lets you down, not the method. Because let's say if you make $300, you risk 150, you lose or you break even, you're done for the day. You've left a winner, but what's the big problem? This is the way 99% of people think. They don't remember the 300 they made. They remember the $150 loss.
Yep.
So I've got to get that back. So now they're already using a desperate mentality when they come back to trade the next day, or if they just keep on going. Got to make it back, got to make it back. Well, why? You made the choice. You're the same person that lost the money that made the money. Why don't you take a step back and come back tomorrow? And if you keep winning, you can keep going. But the moment you lose or break even, you're done.
so hard for people to do.
Because people can't be wrong. They've got to be right all the time.
Right.
You're not going to be right all the time. And this is why what we offer is value added, because you're submitting every single thing that you're doing. And I'm going to say, Mike, awesome trade. Then you're going to send something in, and somehow you were up 300, but now you're down 170. Well, that's surely not half of what you made. So, Mike, why don't you explain this to me in front of everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Accountability.
That's
and I'll be honest, that's hard for some people to deal with. So then I feel like a lot of times then they'll make that as an excuse. Well, like I don't want to get called out in front of the class, or I didn't want to get called out. How else are you going to learn? Honestly,
Never.
How many times can you lie to yourself over and over and say, "Oh, it's just like I did this because of this," or you can make these million excuses to yourself. But if somebody actually calls you out on it, that's the only way you're going to learn. If you truly get called out on it, right? I mean,
how many times, Mike, have we gone through this where students have written you emails saying, I just don't like getting called out. Well, Mike, you know something? Refund them their money. Get them out of here because I don't want them.
Yeah.
Because they're going to end up losing every penny they have. Then they're going to blame it on me when they're not doing what I told them to do.
Very true. Very true.
Everybody doesn't seem to understand that this is a blood sport, man. This is a knife fight in a phone booth. This is as real as it gets, aside from fighting. Okay, and I would never ever put myself in the category of a warrior because I've never been to war. I was never in the military. That's a class all by itself that is beyond reproach. Okay, but let me tell you something. This is pretty close without actually being in combat. This is real close to a fight because the ramifications are real. The outcomes are real. You lose, it's real money. Mm-hmm. In a fight, you stick your head out there, you get knocked out, you get knocked out. There's a finality to it. Living in fantasy land has no place in this world. And for people who think they're just going to walk into this and they've got a big bankroll that they're going to do well, let me tell you the easiest way to become a millionaire in the trading business is to start out as a billionaire.
It's a financial word. Takes money to make money.
Well, you lose everything. You lose almost $1 billion, right? And you lose it down to $1 million. Then you're only a millionaire.
Yeah.
You lose all that money.
Right.
People, it never ceases to amaze me how people come into this and they think that automatically I'm going to make $1 gazillion. It's just not going to happen for some people because
they're just gambling.
Yeah, they're throwing stuff, throwing shit up on the wall, and some of it will stick and some of it won't.
Well, they just have unrealistic expectations.
And so those are the type of people. And, you have students, we have students that come to us and say, well, I only made $300. Only? How much were you making before you got involved in this?
Yeah, this is something that people don't get a grasp on. It's got a lot to do with being completely unfreaking grateful. And I'm not saying I don't care. Thanking me, I could care less. But it's ungrateful to what they've accomplished.
Yes.
First they start out losing every single time because they have no idea what they're doing. Then they get an idea of what they're doing when they're with us. They win 10%. Then they win a quarter. Then they win half the time. Then they start becoming profitable daily. And then they come back with, man, I only made $100 a day. You ungrateful SOB. You forgot where you came from. You came from nothing.
Yeah, it's not
that
it's not that you're ungrateful to you. You're just being ungrateful to yourself.
Exactly.
You're not recognizing the accomplishments that you have made. And you don't need to beat yourself up if you only made X amount of dollars. You made money. This is a zero-sum business. Either you earn money or you lose money.
Exactly.
Bottom line.
And I gotta give that part to you, Pat. And and anybody that doesn't know this or watch this, our students' reviews, Patrick goes through and shows every trade that the students send into him, and we put it out on YouTube so everybody can see it. But Pat, that is something I gotta give to you. Even when somebody is trading on the micros and they'll make a $12 trade and they'll make it, you are their biggest fan. As much as they didn't want to hear you yell at them in the room, but as soon as they make that first trade and they make $12, you're like, hey, I bet somebody else can't do this. I don't give a shit. It's $12. That's money made. Great freaking job. You know, like that.
Exactly.
That's important. And I think that, like, if you were to, a lot of people, obviously everybody on the internet is always judging about a bunch of stuff, right? But if you're looking at just the students traded results, and you can say like, oh, that person only made $12.67 today, or, you know, he only made $17 or something like that. That's easy for you to just pass by as be like, oh, that's not much money at all, right? But the truth is nobody actually sees how much work they put in to get to that point, to make that money. Everybody can look at, you know, the people that are multimillionaire traders that like are just showing their fancy cards and stuff like that, and that's one thing. But for you to look at that person and just completely dismiss them because they only made $17 on a trade, that's BS. It's BS. They came a long way to get there. And when they get through our program, there's a lot of steps that they had to get to even that point to make that live trade and make that $12, right?
No, absolutely. And just excuse me for one moment, because I've got to move a stop.
No problem.
On a trade. First of all, they came from, and the worst scenario could possibly be, they went to some other company first and it didn't work, because now they've got bad habits that we have to break them up. That's number one. The best thing you could ever do is never have traded before and start with us. That's the greatest thing that could have ever happened to you if you're going to start trading.
I was in that first category that you were talking about.
So you've got to go through Ramp Up with Randall to even learn what we do at the most cellular level, most basic component. You got to go through the first 100 so you can prove to us that you know what you're doing. Then you go through Money Management 1, Money Management 2. Then you have the option to go live. You can go Money Management again. If you want to go live, we suggest you start off with the micros. Hell, when I started, there was no such thing as the micros. I think it's the greatest learning tool in the world, because I'm going to guarantee you there is nobody in this world that can tell me the difference in pucker factor between micro and mini the first time they take it or when it's for real money. Nobody. Okay? And then you graduate up to minis if you choose to. I have students who only trade micros, and they are phenomenally successful. You don't need to trade anything else. And this is what I used to tell people about, you know, when I won the WEF World Championship, I became an overnight sensation. Well, it took me 30 years to become an overnight sensation. When I started wrestling when I was 6 years old, when I fighting in amateurs, fighting the first freaking fight at the Lord's Gym Underground in Hialeah, Florida, when the thing was illegal, nobody could do it. You know, they don't see all that. They don't see the walking, you know, on Washington Avenue or Washington Street on Miami Beach after I just worked the door at Crowbar on a Thursday night, getting off, walking down to South Florida Boxing, opening the place up and starting to work out. They don't see that stuff.
Yep.
You know, they don't see the stuff that you go through of, I remember one time I was dating a girl before the first time I ever had a world championship fight. And I told her from day one, like I had told every other girl I ever dated when I was fighting, do not make me choose between you and this, because you will lose. She started with me 3 weeks before a fight. She was gone. Never thought about her again. Don't care. people don't see what you do to get to a certain spot. And Mike, that's probably the first time, and Randall, it's probably the first time you two have ever heard that story from me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
it is.
But
You
there is sacrifice. You have that sacrifice that you've got to do. And you're right. People don't see all the hard work that goes into becoming a decent trader. Not a great trader, just to become a decent trader. There's a lot of effort and time that you have to put into it. And some people are not willing to do that.
Yeah, and first and foremost, you've got to find a method that works. And unfortunately, people are going through a dozen charlatans before they find something that works for them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This
And
is
that was
getting
me.
back to what I was saying before. I'm calling them out the day before.
Yeah.
My students are the ones taking them. We're not telling them to do it. And we're wildly successful. Show me anybody else that does that. Silence. That's what you hear.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But I think that's why it's so powerful, but people just don't realize it. When you actually realize it and you look at it and see that, look, Patrick is a madman. He's won what, 3 championships?
Different levels, different things.
Right? I mean, in Randall, how many obstacles have you overcome? I mean, we're all real people, right? We're all just normal people, but you guys have been through the ringer and you guys have seen it, and I think that's what makes you guys such good instructors and teachers to everybody else, right? Is that you can sit down at the table like we do at the Come Trade With Me events, right? You can sit down, break bread with them, and
Yeah.
we're all just hanging out. We're all just normal people having good talks.
Everything that I've learned from Patrick Asselone about how to trade. Honest to God. I mean, I have been searching for something like this, and I happened to hear an advertisement on Sirius XM radio, and I responded to it, and I met Patrick, and I met Dan O'Brien, and everything else changed for me. I started listening to these guys, right? So Patrick's my mentor, and he's, everything that I teach and everything that I share with people is nothing that I came up with. It's just the same stuff. But it's just in a more as simplified way as we can possibly explain to students how to trade this stuff. And then you progress through this. That's the whole process, right? You start with the very basics and then you work your way up.
Yep.
And it again, there are only a few trades that I really like. And it's reversals and opening range breakouts. Those are gap fills. Those are my go-to trades. Now people say, well, I want more. I want more.
Why?
Well, exactly. Why?
Practice more, trade more contracts. Why do you need any more?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I think that's a great point. I mean, isn't that the point where you made, okay, that person that did make $12 on that trade, what if they were trading in the minis, and what if they were trading on 20 contracts, right? It's the same trade.
Same trade.
They just have to train themselves how to be able to take that trade emotionally.
Right. And
But
I'll tell you the most difficult thing in this business to do is to be wrong. Okay. So what is that? That means somebody puts a stop on, they take a trade, they leave it. They're in it until they're not. If you can't master that skill, there's no way you're ever going to let a winner run. It is never going to happen, ever. And people are, oh, yeah, sure. You're full of shit. And you have no idea what you're talking about. Because if you can't sit there and take a stop, there's absolutely, positively no freaking way that you're ever going to let a winner run. And this is a story that I'm sure the both of you, I know Randall may have been in the room. I'm not sure, Mike, if you were in the room or not. But it was a few years ago when oil went down below zero. And then it came back up again.
I remember that day. And
Donald Trump was president, and it was Wednesday, which was an oil announcement day. And he said sometime after the oil announcement, probably like 10:45, he was going to have a talk, or there was a press something, and there was this ridiculous media story about how the Russians and the Saudis were fighting against each other to drive down the price of oil. No, they were not. They were together in it to try to destroy our shale oil production. Okay? That's what happened. So I'm going to guarantee you what happened, and I said this in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Trump called up both of them, and he said, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pull our military bases out of Saudi Arabia. We're just going to let the Iranians have their way with you. We can do that. Then you go to the Russians and you tell them, we're just going to open up the faucet and we're going to drown you with cheap oil, because we as a country can survive much, much longer than you can with cheap oil than Russia can, because they're only export. So what happens? At this point, oil, there was I believe something like a build of like 7 million or 9 million barrels that day. For all the people that consider themselves fundamental analysts, the price should have puked. Didn't move. I kept going long. I took 4 trades. I think I was down something like $300 or something. And I'm only trading one contract because the margins had been raised to something like $60,000 a contract. Okay.
Crazy stuff. That's crazy.
Remember that? Well, it was insane.
Yeah,
From like
insane. Yeah.
$1,500 to 60,000. And I finally get to break even. I get to break even plus. And I took 3 stops, 3 losers. Okay. Finally, that announcement comes out. Oil shoots through the freaking roof.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trailing it live in front of everybody. On one contract, I'm up $4,000. That's locked in. You can't count what you don't have. Okay, so that's locked in, trailing a stop. The final bar that I was trailing was $1.20, which means $1,200. I wasn't watching the money. I was using the method.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Were you using a 1 or 2 bar on that one? I forget.
1 bar stop.
1 bar stop.
Okay. I watch the method. I take it. Okay, I get stopped out. You're not going to hear me complain about the $1,200 I didn't make. I was real happy about. No, excuse me, like the $4,800 that I made. Okay. I'd have done that the same thing with 1 contract, with 5 contracts, with 10, with 20. If you can't hold it to whatever conclusion, you're never ever going to be able to let a winner run, which is where you make your money.
And you make this comment that trading 1 contract, and I agree with you, is the most difficult thing that you can do.
Absolutely.
Because you're holding it, and if it goes against you while you're still in, you haven't been able to move it to that 1 bar stop and trail it, you could get stopped out for a full stop.
Yep.
A loss, right? Whereas
you can't take anything off, you can't trail, you can't do anything.
Right. So whereas if you're trading with 2 contracts, you can at least take one off at a point, and then you go to break even at that point. That way,
True.
You're guaranteed a free trade.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And a lot of people have a hard time grasping that. But trying to trade 1 contract, it's hard.
What's funny is they think well, 1 contract. What's 1 contract? Well, go trade 10. Go see what happens. Be my guest.
Not so good.
And this goes to ego again. People don't like being told what to do. They don't like being wrong. You've got to admit something. You know absolutely nothing about this business. The moment you do that, when you enter, you're fine. The moment you start thinking you know because you watch those buffoons on television who have never, ever been right in their lives, ever. When you accept the fact that you know nothing, and it doesn't matter whether you're coming into trading or to fighting or to car racing or to anything, accept the fact that you know nothing because you've never done it. Mm. That's where you start. That's step one.
You got to start. Yeah. Oh, totally.
And you still have to remind yourself of this stuff sometimes, Pat?
Oh, yeah. I've got Post-it notes all over the freaking place. You have to, because you start to feel like you're invincible. You start turning out students who are becoming profitable, live, real money traders, and you think you can walk on water till you get kicked in the nuts, and then you're drowning. That's just what happens.
I think there was one thing that you said to me
Amazing.
many years ago. Says you're only as profitable as your last trade. I think you had said that to me. Yeah, and you are. You're only as profitable as you are with your last trade. And you know what opportunity is another one that you gave me is what opportunity is the market presenting to me right now? There may be none, and you have to accept those things.
Oh, you have to accept that there's going to be periods of time, maybe days, where you might not get a trade. And then you're going to get 7. You cannot go in with a preconceived notion that this is going to happen. I'm going to get this many. And this is one of the best one. I love this myth. Okay, well, I'm going to have a minimum that, okay, I'm going to make $300 today. Okay, well, what happens if there's no trades? You got to make $600 tomorrow? You're now just putting this ridiculous undue pressure on yourself when it's completely unrealistic.
And that's why you get yourself into trouble.
Exactly.
Because now you're starting to click at something that's not there. Yeah.
Exactly. I've got to do this. So what do? You start taking something from those 4 courses that didn't work. You add 3 of those pieces together, and then because you see reversals work off my levels the vast majority of the time, it's going to work because you say so. Completely throw out the window that the trade that you would qualify according to my rules has disqualified it. You got to do something.
You got to dig it. Yeah.
How many percentage of people that get through your program successfully and then start trading live, whether it be on micros or minis, they do it and then come back to you after they all right, let me put it like this. They start taking losing trades, don't send them into you, and then come back, and after they got beat up enough and you ask them, hey, why didn't you send it in? They're like, I know I was doing something stupid. And then they said, if I would have just stuck to the basics, if I always do the best when I just stick to the basics, I should have just listened to Pat. Honestly, how many out of the percentage of all of our students, how many think have said that?
Oh, Jesus, 90% of them?
Honestly. It's an astronomical number.
Yeah, because what ends up happening is they earn their way to go live. Then they go live. They start sending stuff in, and it's always the same pattern. I'm not making enough. Then the trades stop coming in. Then they're not in the room.
Yep.
And then they show up again, and they purge themselves. And they tell you, I just didn't follow the rules.
Yeah.
And I was
and the truth
embarrassed.
finally comes out.
Right.
It's amazing how many people will do exactly what they need to do to get through Money Management 1 and then Money Management 2. And then, for whatever reason, they don't follow. Right.
Right out the window.
Yeah. I'm not going to do that. Wait a second. This is what got you here, to the point that you can go live if you want to.
You
I'm not going to
dance
do
with the
that.
girl that brought you. That's what you do. Because otherwise, you're just an idiot. So I have busted my ass anywhere from 3 to 6 to 7, 8, 10 months a year, whatever it was, depending on how much time you have. I did it exactly this way. But now, I'm just going to do it my way. When your way never worked before you started my way. So now you got to be right.
Then you think you outsmarted it. Or
yeah.
I mean, and that's something that, I mean, because we do the TCUs, which are trader checkups to people those that don't know. But I've noticed that a lot of times, and I know you guys have too. How many times have we seen somebody get through and just do amazing? We're all so proud of them, and we talk to them all the time. Then they get off on their own, and slowly the trades stop coming in. and then slowly they stop answering the phone, and it's like, oh man, they must have blew their account. They must have just went into you know,
And let me
avalanche.
Let me tell you how I know that's the case. Because on their way to going live, as soon as the freaking trade is stopped out, they're sending pictures in of their wins.
Yep.
You can't get in front of them fast enough.
Yeah.
But if they have that loser,
Mm-hmm. Well, I knew better. I knew I shouldn't have taken that trade. Okay. So why didn't you send it in? Because I already knew. I already knew what Patrick was going to tell me. But you were too scared to hear it from him.
Yeah, this is, this is a two-way street. You do something stupid, you take the beating. Just like how many over the years, I always admit when I'm wrong.
mm-hmm.
And here's the reason why. Because I'm putting everything out there the day before. I have to take freaking responsibility for it. I can't lie.
Your credibility would be down the tubes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why these edges that you draw each and every day. And by the way, folks, he will teach you how to draw these HVA edges, but you really need to learn the method before you try to learn how to draw HVA edges. But with when you put yourself out there each and every day with that responsibility, that's huge, dude. That really is. And it holds up under scrutiny. If you look at these trades, if you look at and analyze all these trades, wins and losses, it works. It works. But people have, this can't be true. This can't be.
It's too
but
good
it
to be
is
true.
true. It is true. These edges work. And sometimes in a classroom, I will pull up a chart and I'll say, okay, now we see where we can take trades depending on what the market is doing. We have these edges to trade off. I said, now, if we take all of these away, how would you know to take a trade at that edge?
It wouldn't.
How do you know there's an edge there? And you take that away on the screen, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. There's nothing there. How do you know? Oh, it's a double top. How do you know?
How do you know that? What
How
time
do you know
frame
it's
are
a
you
double
using?
bottom?
And I can show
True.
you. I can show you 5 times as many double tops and double bottoms that get run over than work.
Probably.
Okay. So there's another technical analysis, freaking falsehood, lie. Just you can't. It's a lie. It's a freaking lie.
Mm-hmm.
You're cherry picking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Explain cherry picking to those who don't
Cherry
really understand
picking
the term.
Somehow you've got somebody that only shows the winners. When I'm putting these levels out there the day before, you're showing people taking trades at these levels and they lose. Well, how are the only trades you're picking? You must be psychic. Because you're only picking winners. That's a liar. And that's what you get with the vast majority of these people that are selling courses. They're cherry picking stuff. They've got 6, 7 accounts and they're showing the winners.
Yep.
Anybody can take. You want to put the money down? That I'm not telling the truth? Bring the money. Let's put it in an escrow account. I'll give you full freaking access to my emails, my server, everything. You can find every freaking email on there that I'm posting everything that's sent in. Everyone. Nobody else will come near me with that.
So this what we do, what you have shared with the other people, and sometimes we'll get questions like, well, why is he sharing this? Why is he just not keeping it to himself? Why not share the wealth?
Well, again, the guy that brought me into the business, he said to me, if you're not helping someone who wants help, not needs help, but if you're not helping someone who wants the help, then what good are you? And it made a real impact with me. Because he was absolutely right. There's lots of people out there who need the help. The problem is those are just soul-sucking vampires that will take every ounce of your life force out of you and then throw you aside. When they're done, they'll go looking for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
When you run into people who want the help, they're willing to put the work in and they're appreciating what you're showing them. Okay? But guess what? There's a price that comes with this. I developed this. Me.
Mm-hmm.
You want to learn what I'm doing? You need to pay me, because it's the only way you're ever going to take this seriously. Because I'm going to tell you something, and I've said this to Mike many times. You think it's expensive now? Wait till it's free.
Yep. I've seen it. There's been times where there's been certain people, friends or family or somebody, that has been gifted this program. Even when we did give the gift of trading, I have some of our best students that bought the program and paid the price and then gave it to somebody just as the gift and wanted to teach them and did it. But because it was a gift and they didn't pay anything for it, they never even submitted one trade. They didn't even care. They barely even got through onboarding.
I've never had somebody who we gifted a program to ever have any success.
Yep.
Because they don't.
That's why I wouldn't do it. It's not worth it. It's not even to my friends and family is like, oh, well, can you hook me up on this? I'm like, it's not. What is that going to do for you? It's not going to do anything. The people that pay the price, and then they can look at it and look, I paid for it. Now I'm going to put in the time to make it work. Those are the people that are successful.
You weren't even willing to pay for it, that you're going to put the work in necessary to achieve something.
Right.
If you don't have skin in the game and you have something to lose, you're never, ever going to be successful at anything, because you can always walk away from it without any harm.
Very, very true statement. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We have one student that has been gifted this, and he seems to be doing well. Time will tell. Yeah. Thus far, he's in money management. All the ones that you were referring to, Mike, I remember a lot of them that came in and they were gifted this stuff and didn't use it. This young man is doing it. I mean, he's putting the time in, he's putting the effort in, and he may be an exception to that rule. Hopefully he will be.
17 too, though, right?
18 and I'll be pimping him in front of everybody.
18? Yeah, he's 18 now. I mean, just turned 18. Not going to mention any names, but
no. But when you're that young, I think in all honesty, because the majority of people aren't that young when they get into it, right? So,
man, I wish I had known.
I wish I would have. I completely agree.
Wish it could have, would have.
But you also have that drive at that age.
You guys can say that, but you may never have been emotionally mature enough to do it.
Probably not at that time.
Very
okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at it as your 18-year-old self with your 40-some-odd-year-old body, or where you are this time. Oh, I would have done it. When I was 18 years old, all I wanted to do was join the military and go into Special Forces selection. I got to guarantee something. My attitude at 18 years old, I probably would have washed out because my attitude was wrong. It was wrong. I was not.
All I cared about at 18 was picking up women. That's it. That's it. It was just women.
It's emotional maturity. It's just, are you willing to pay the price? And the price comes in the form of, are you willing to pay for it? Are you willing to put the time in? Are you willing to listen? And most importantly, are you willing to be taught? Which is the biggest problem that most people have.
Big problem. Again, another student who refuses to submit trades, but he knows everything, right? I know everything. Promote me through this whole process, right?
No.
Thank you. No. You got to put in the work. That's the bottom line. You have to have that mental attitude. Yeah, and you're right. Probably when I was 18 years of age, not probably, you're right. You were right. I wouldn't have been able to do this. because at that time I was in the military. But that made me a man. Going into the military truly changed my life. And
that was the path for you.
For that point in time in my life, yeah, it was. But I wanted to make a lot of money back when I was 18 years of age. Oh, money. I was money motivated me. Absolutely. Still does too. And it does everybody.
Well, the military was probably not the right choice at 18.
Well, hey, I guess that's a good way to say happy Veterans Day. And thank you for your service there, Randman.
I never went out of the country, so
Veterans Day.
Yeah, I never went out of the country, but yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, this has been fun, guys. Pat, I'd love to have you back on. I know Randall would too, man.
Absolutely.
This has been fun, man. Thanks a lot for coming, and again, would love to have you on another time.
There's going to be so much good feedback from this, I think. Just having you out there, hearing it from you, and seeing you. You know, a lot of people, when we're in the rooms, they don't see you. Now, with this, they will be able to see you, which is really cool. We talk about you all the time on here. Oh, we do. Yeah. And it's all good.
Randall, remember, both of you have had experience with this, that you wanted me to talk to a prospective student. And I said, that's probably not a good idea because you stand just as much a chance of me pissing them off.
Yeah.
As helping, because I will call them out. Yep. So, maybe some people like it, maybe some people don't, but what do I always tell people? You don't have to like it. You just have to do it. Yep. I don't care if you like me. I don't care if you respect me. It means nothing to me. But respect.
And folks, he really means that. He absolutely 100% means what he just said.
Yeah, I don't care. But you better respect what I'm doing here because it works. And if you want to prove
it's not a sales pitch.
Go right ahead. Purchase a course. Prove me wrong. I would love to see that. Hasn't happened yet in 15 years. So,
yeah. But absolutely. Yeah, thanks, dude, for coming in today. This has been awesome.
This is so much fun. Yeah. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Life and Leverage podcast.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.